pretty much full slab already. Interesting to watch. Yeah. I'm not hearing anyone being
Yep.
too upset about it.
When I saw it.
Plans or anything else? It's a little house.
He's so unlucky.
Big one for around here, isn't it?
I like
Where's
it.
that? It's like the little.
I saw it was correction.
Oh, it's a Jay's. Yes.
Hotel.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, that's big for around here.
I think it's supposed to be in there. Is that a red one?
Yes.
I think it has
It's right here. Should say data center ordinance,
Oh.
not AIC.
Yeah, so I can change it in June, in June.
They need to change a phase.
Because I didn't July.
Yeah.
In this, not everywhere.
I made it work on that.
There you go.
I got 3 pages out of it.
Oh, can we have some air? Yeah, I'm hot.
Cool air, more.
I do.
I mean, we have air, but cool would be nice. There's a little stuff in there.
You farm girls, wife's the same way.
Oh, I hate her.
1 degree, makes a world of difference.
I can tell you when the temperature in a room gets set.
234.
So what, 72?
It was 72.
You turned it down to 70?
Yep. We'll see about
That's
that.
where I have mine in the house.
No, we'd have to, you're right. That would be a bigger fight.
It's
Okay.
clear.
I thought we had.
Yeah. You got a bunch of mini splits in.
Somebody was just talking about that.
You just can't run any ductwork.
No.
There, but what about Jeff?
I haven't heard it. I didn't hear anything.
And you know, they're this
Vacation, yeah.
deep.
I know. Yeah.
Have you heard from Jeff? Do you know?
No.
Yeah, I didn't hear.
Any word from Jeff?
Okay. I mean, everything was.
Yeah, he's been issues.
Okay.
I didn't. I mean, it's got
Farming stuff.
yeah, farming stuff.
What the next step
You
is.
never know.
Yeah.
You ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, I'll call the August meeting of the Huntington Township Planning Commission to order. First item on the agenda is public comment on agenda items. Is there any? I'm not hearing any. We move on. Approval of the minutes of the July meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
Yep, yes.
Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes as presented?
I have none.
No.
Not hearing any, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented to the record.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Marlon,
I'll second.
second by Tom. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, so moved. Scott? You're up.
Zoning officers report, 6 permits were issued in July, 2 for roof mounted solar and 4 for pole building sheds. 2 grading and erosion control plans are being reviewed. Animal and junk complaint was received for 328 Goodyear Road. I'm working with the homeowner to address those issues. Ongoing, I received a noise complaint for the York Springs Social Hall at 6910 Old Harrisburg Road. I'm continuing to look into that. Ongoing, I received a drainage complaint for 8164 Carlisle Pike. The issue is being caused by the property across the street in Lattimore Township, so I'm working with their engineer on that issue with John Shambaugh. Ongoing, I received a drainage complaint for 1385 Baltimore Road. The issue is being caused by the property across the street, which is the Bermudian Springs School. Ongoing, I received a complaint against a neighbor at 1235 Wireman's Mill Road regarding mowing and drainage. So I'm working with him on that issue. The zoning ordinance update is ongoing, and there are no land development or subdivision plans being reviewed at this time. The list of all those zoning permits are included in your printout, as well as MDIA's update.
Scott, may I ask, the third one there, the whole noise complaint, this has been several times now. Have you been able to make contact with those people?
I left a notice the first time I was there, and I haven't heard back yet.
Okay.
So I need to check with the neighbor who made the complaint and see if there's been any more instances. I wanted to give him a month or two just to see if anything changed.
Has the neighbor raised an additional complaint or just the
No,
first?
just the initial complaint.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, thank you. Next, under new business, there is new business. I'm aware of. Moving on to old business, and it's a zoning ordinance discussion. And it's up to you.
Yes, that's me. Okay, last time I was here was June, and we had talked about, I handed out the data center stuff, and we map this and map, we go ahead and we go on over it. So everybody have it, or do you need another guy to have the high specs? Okay. So last time what I handed out, we went through, it was, what I gave you was not intended to be the final version. What I gave you was a version that has all of the potential items that could go into regulating this use. The challenge is picking it, and not that all of them might not necessarily be appropriate in this setting, but I wanted you to see what they were. So now I have to figure out what do you want in there, what do you want to take out, etc. Also showed the map in the map around last time that showed the overlay area that we talked about down, the little commercial area down towards Heidlersburg, just between the border was Old Harrisburg Road on the west and 15 on the east, and then the north-south lines were the northern and southern limits of that, from where it stops up north all the way down to the township line between those two roads. So there is that.
Do we know what the address is on the north end of that? Because I don't know you drive by there and I can't tell.
It's several, from what I recall in the tax parcels, it's actually several properties combined.
That it goes through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, well, I shouldn't say a lot. In the context of the range of size projects that data centers can be, it's not very big. It's like somewhere between, say, 200 and 400 or 500 acres, if that. It's
And that's if they got the whole thing.
Well, and that's if they
Yeah.
require all the individual properties
Highly
within that.
highly
that set.
unlikely, even in the best.
I mean, they did something similar to the one up in Middlesex Township up in Cumberland County, where it's now their overlay covers four properties that were separate, that are now owned by the development entity, which is causing its own separate
Yes, it
legal issues.
Yeah.
So it's not impossible, but it is
Not likely.
not likely. On the flip side though, you know, you gotta be aware with that setting there, which again, it makes sense for a lot of reasons. But you also have the natural gas line just a little bit across the line in Tyrone Township. You have the power line that comes up along 15 to connect to the compressor station. You know, so it's not as if it's completely barren down there. Like another municipality that wants to put this in, and when I measured from their district where they want to put it to the nearest transmission line, it was 4 miles in every cardinal direction. Like, you can put it in, peeps, but you know that's even for the cost of these projects, that's quite a distance to run a power line. So
And a lot of property could go over to do it.
right.
Yeah.
So just be cognizant that it's you know, well, it might not be highly likely given the electricity power issues in the grid, and especially in Med Ed and First Energy's area. It's not like you're completely barren in terms of some of the resources they might need. So just, I put that out there so you're fully aware as we go into this.
Do we know if that gas line is refined or raw? Do you know?
It's natural gas.
Yeah, I know. Is it refined? You can't just take natural gas out of the ground and run a turbine with it. It's gotta be refined and cleaned and
I mean,
scrubbed.
that line's been there since the 30s, I believe.
Okay, well, I can check on that. Because it reduces what you're saying to zero on the gas line, because you'd have to run it through a refining process.
I don't know fully, but I know one time school checked into being able to tap in down, you know, for the school.
Yeah.
So I hate to assume, but I would guess that it is refined if they were looking at tapping into it down there.
Okay, I'll check.
I mean, they were also looking to that. That's one of the connections off, it goes all the way down to the power plant down in Hunterstown. So I
Yeah.
believe it does serve, I mean, I think that those lines are one of the reasons why that plant is here in the first, where it is in the first place.
Right.
So,
Texas Eastern was put in during World War II, 1942 to 1943. That's the big inch and the little inch, the original line. They went through my granddad's farm back in them days.
Okay. It's stuff with cars in it,
Right.
Okay, we can check.
All right.
now, how easy it is to tap into it, I don't know, but it's just across the board with it.
Yeah.
So. I mean, has anybody had a chance to look through it and have any questions about what some of the standards are in there? I'm not sure where you want to start to look at some of this stuff. Did anybody see things you didn't like, or I'm, you know, what are your thoughts after you've had a chance to look through it?
Well, one of the I raised the question on, you had the water requirements, and I raised the question of we're doing closed loop. Isn't that a bit of a contradiction? And the answer is no, because they still do have some, if they use closed loop cooling, they still have some minimal water requirements. So I think our water requirements are appropriate in here, as well as requiring closed loop. Now, some of these cases, they're fighting back on closed loop in an environment like this one. They need a phase change to get the cooling, but I still think we're at the right starting point the way it's right here.
And we agree. I'd rather start, they can all, as with any standard, they can always
They can
ask
challenge.
for relief or variance from it.
Yep.
But it's, from the municipality's perspective, starting with the stricter standard and then forcing them to prove why they need relief
Yep.
is far better than saying, hey, can you pretty please, the cherry on top, we know you want this, but can you pretty please, cherry on top, do it this way?
It's too late.
Yeah, most are gonna say no.
Yep. So I was satisfied on that.
Tom, where was that in the report that you were questioning?
Page 14, I believe,
It's under cooling.
talking about the
Water usage, cooling,
Well, that's,
wastewater?
yeah. The one is the water usage. Starts on 14.
Oh, and-
Yeah, 5A, data centers should be designed a combination of dry coolers and closed loop. And I questioned whether we wanted to have that and still have the water supply issues that are referenced in other places. The answer is yes. So,
You're talking about the water feasibility, the water supply feasibility report standards on page 18.
that was one of them. We referenced a couple other places too. But yeah, that was the big one.
That one's in there because you're, the way your subdivision ordinance is set up, on the water study requirements, it gives you a lot of flexibility to require whatever design your requirements to the individual proposal. So this, we have here, I feel gives you able to dictate, this is what we want that flexibility to be in this case.
Correct.
You know, there's, one of the questions we've given to, some municipalities put the standards like these or stricter in, but just apply it to one use. And our question is, well, if it's good enough for this use, why not every use? The
Right.
answer is because it's not appropriate for every use. But yours is set up so that you have the ability to be flexible in the first place. So this gives you the ability to be specific for this type of use while being flexible for the ones where it's not, that level of detail is not appropriate.
Right.
Andy, where do you see the state government and all the talk about the moratorium and all this? I mean, do you see any headway, or is it just all political?
Well, I'll give you the answer that I gave, and when somebody, my staff asked that question in our meeting today. So if you haven't followed, the governor issued an executive order. I wasn't aware that you could do executive orders at the state level. I thought that was just a federal thing. Guess I learned something new last week.
There is a question whether that's valid or not.
I was-
To your very point. Go ahead.
That's for smarter people than me to figure out. Reading that, if I was reading that, what he put out, what the controls he wants to put out in that, from a position that I didn't do this for a living and had no idea about ordinances and how local government worked, it would sound fantastic. Great, good job. Then I step back and do have some experience in how these things work. And my first question is, how in the world do you have what's the legal authority for you to actually require that stuff to be done? And I think that's the big challenge here is there's nothing that he's said in that order that's bad. It would, if implemented, it would certainly help. You know,
Townships and
Yeah.
local, local.
but I think a lot, I don't, there's a lot in there that I don't think municipalities have the power to legally enforce. Like requiring them to pay for their own electricity. That sounds great in theory, but the reality is that the feds control, new power lines and those, and whenever those permits are applied for and granted, it automatically preempts local land use ordinances, and you have no say. You know, so it sounds great in theory, but what's the power that actually lets you do it? And the other part that I thought was just a little ridiculous was, well, we need them to develop data centers to stop speculative development and scaring communities. Okay, and that and however much a cup of coffee costs will get you a cup of coffee. It doesn't mean anything. You can tell dealers, well, pretty please don't do that. Where's the teeth to actually enforce everything that was in that they're talking about? That's what I want to see, and I would suspect any planner or attorney that's working on the municipality side is wondering that as well, is to, you know, okay, great, how now tell us how we actually do that, and don't get ourselves sued to oblivion.
I guess my thought, if you know, if at the state level we're facing those same things, as a township level, are we gonna face the same issues?
What do you mean?
Well, if you're talking about if the governor can't enact it.
Oh, we can't dictate terms of electrical, who pays for the electrical.
But, I mean.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. We
I mean,
can't.
it would sound like they were trying to do was to, you know, here's these magic bullets to stop it. And those magic bullets aren't magic unless there's some sort of legal power behind it to make it magic. And right now, I'm questioning that legal backing doesn't exist. So, again, we'll happily to be proved wrong by an actual attorney, but from a planner and ordinance writer perspective, I have some serious questions. So, but again, that's not to say that what he's saying was a bad idea or that he was wrong about some of the issues. I'm just questioning the solutions. That's all.
I guess the question I have is there any implications of what our governor said affect what we're working on here?
I mean, I don't think so, because when it comes down to it, each municipality knows its community and knows what the challenges are with certain types of development. Each of you knows best what standards or what is something that we need to control and what's some things we don't need to control, don't need to worry about. There is no model or nothing that can come down from the state that can tell you better than what you know locally. The best thing they can do is to give the statutory power for you to do what you need to do. So, I don't think there certainly could be things in here that if pushed might get thrown out or might get preempted by either higher state or federal acts. Yeah. And we're not usually in the path of telling municipalities to, you know, willingly put stuff in your ordinance that'll get you sued. But the question you have to ask yourself is, are there certain uses where it might be worth pushing the envelope because
Stand your ground.
right,
Yeah.
you know, and certainly the impacts of these can be in that range where, you know, it's better to be strict and stand your ground than permissive and, you know, hope for the best. You know, there were things in here like, you know, the green building techniques, the environmental features that, you know, I wasn't sure I've seen that out there. I'm not sure. That sounds great, but I'm not sure how you enforce it. You know, the green building techniques, LEED certification. I mean, the environmental features, I've seen that in a bunch of ordinances talking about the PNDI, which is the endangered species search, woodlands, repairing forest buffers, which I don't think is particularly relevant to you guys, since I don't think you really have any in that setting where it is in the first place. You know, so those could probably be removed, and that starts on page 9. There, it's highlighted in yellow and blue. We can sort of keep it if you want, but if it goes out, I don't know that I don't know that it moves the needle significantly one direction or the other.
I know I saw you got the height from the max like 35 feet. I mean, I saw in glancing through some of our other ordinance codes, 35 feet was the max for the township. I mean, I don't see why we should go above that.
Yeah, that's certain. One of the things that, again, this is my personal professional viewpoint on these. A lot of municipalities treat this as industrial use, which it is, and then apply the industrial standards to it, which are fine for industrial uses that might be less than, have different impacts than this. You want to put a 50 or 75 foot tall limit on some manufacturing use that needs that for something specific. Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
It's part of their process. You know, but applying it to this, which is basically a big room of computers, those industrial standards are being too permissive, in my view, especially on the dimensional side. So, again, the part that I initially wrote was 35 there, but I put the other one there in case somebody had a consensus for something different. I'm perfectly fine if you leave it at the lower one. They can always come in and say, you know, we can't meet that, here's why.
Yeah.
You know, and
That's just the.
Yeah, I agree.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Where is the 35 feet?
Page
You were
3.
talking
page
about?
3.
Page.
Page
Page
3.
3.
Thank you.
There was one thing, and I don't remember what it's off the top of my head. There was, just like that. Bear with me for a second. Grab the wrong binder out of the bag. There was one thing in the zoning ordinance, which again, we're going through this, and we're eventually going to update all of this, but what was it?
You're saying in our current zoning ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay.
In section 1015 height regulations, it says no structure shall exceed 35 feet in height except as a conditional use. Height of the building may exceed the maximum permitted height by 1 foot for each additional foot, which of each side yard exceeds the minimum regulations in the district it's located. Basically what that means is if you have a, say, 100-foot setback, and you make it 200, you can, for every foot you put beyond the minimum requirement, you can get more.
Yeah.
Again, sounds great in principle. Now apply it to a use like this, and you can see it where they have huge amounts of property, it's set back huge distances from the property line in the first place. All of a sudden, what sounds good and well intended breaks for specific things. I think that section needs to go in the ordinance, period, because it's, a little too permissive. There's a better way to do, if you intend to build flexibility in on height, there's better ways to do it than that, I think.
And what was the section again?
27-1015. We can certainly write in here that something to the effect that section doesn't apply for the time being.
Yeah.
But that section would potentially cause a problem with that height restriction. sticking on page 3 there, the setbacks. We've seen bigger. The challenge that, why in your particular case, why I'm hesitant to go larger is just the sheer size of the area you're putting it in.
Yeah.
You can't go too big or there's not gonna be anything to build on.
Right.
And you get sued because of
Then you
that.
have a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So I do understand that bigger for this type of use, the farther it is away from stuff, the better. But sometimes you gotta look at where you're putting it. That's gonna cause, doing that, you put it 500 or something like that, but you're not gonna be able to build anything.
Right, then we don't.
There, once you take
Then
it
we're not
out.
providing for the
So,
use.
I'm not even sure how much you'd be able to get a building in there if you put that type of setback between the two roads and some of those properties, so.
Well, we're starting with, it would be a small data center by any,
Yeah.
of today's,
Yeah.
but I think they're all gonna be strong.
If you got one, given what you're looking at, it would be more likely to be the single one where you have, I say single, it's usually multiple buildings.
Yeah.
Like
They're all,
the, probably less than 1 million square foot type of thing,
yeah.
as opposed to the one up in Cumberland County that's, 3 times that.
Yeah.
So,
You know, right now, there are 16 of these that are past the proposal, just passed in some cases, in Cumberland County. And my information is none of them have even slowed down pursuant to the governor's executive order, because it's either fine, we can comply with that, or that's never gonna hold up. So, they're already preparing if the executive order even stands, period, that's the first thing they're challenging. Did he even have the authority to do this? There's pending legislation. I don't think he'd sign pending legislation now, sign legislation now that he did the executive order. He might have previously, actually, he said he would, and that's always an open question. So looking at the legislation and looking at the executive order, I think it's a reasonable position for these developers to say, we're moving ahead. And when you've got so much of that development up there, does it even make sense to consider other areas that are much less advantageous to them in every respect than we are? So my attitude is, we need to proceed as we are. We need to provide for an overlay, as we've discussed. But this probability of us having to deal with this, I think, continues to go down. And I mean by us, both Adams County and Huntington Township. Would you agree with my assessment?
I do, simply but additionally because of the power grid
Yes.
issues here, and
Yeah.
that we are not in the power grid operator that has the excess capacity to.
Excess capacity, high voltage, we're nowhere near the voltage of those lines passing through these data centers in Cumberland County, nowhere near it.
So the one in Cumberland County, there was a meeting, I don't know, it was this month.
You're talking about the one under development?
Yeah. Where the plans approved, where they're now is they're negotiating the community benefits agreement. That's the side agreement between the developer and the community for a whole host of stuff that's not, there's no ordinance that requires it. It's stuff that the developer is offering up on their own for the community. Now, you can argue as to why they feel the need to offer up stuff that they're not legally required to do, and what their motives might be for doing that, but they are. The only reason it wasn't reviewed and approved was because apparently the township solicitor had a medical issue during a meeting and they had to call the meeting because they weren't proceeding without their attorney. The township wasn't. So, we've seen other ordinances that do that, including one that, well, we might give them an A for effort, we gave them an F for legal ability, which was they, essentially, if a data center was built and a neighboring property, they required the developer to pay the difference in value for
The
a
value
neighboring
went down.
property. If, say it was worth $500,000 before the data center sold, was built, after it was sold for $300,000, the data center developer would have to pay the property owner the difference, which is blatantly unconstitutional. So how they figure they're gonna get it, what they're figuring is that, well, nobody's ever gonna build one here, so we don't have to worry about it. You know, there's people coming with weird stuff.
Yep, and that'll continue.
So,
This stuff's going.
I'm gonna go to page 12 for a second here.
Okay.
There's a couple things to point out there. First is B, that's highlighted there. Again, that's what this is one of these standards that, you know, you can ask, but how it's actually done is out of your control. You know, their power is gonna come, those permits are approved at the state or federal level. You can ask them nicely here, but if they say, no, we're doing this, you have no power to stop them. Again, that gets to the point of, the governor said, well, they have to come and provide their own power. Great. What's the legal authority you're giving municipalities to actually require that? So you can have it in there, but I also don't, I think it would get, if challenged, it would get preempted. So if you want it in there, fine. If you want to take it out, just fine. I don't, either way, I don't know that it has a whole much difference, other than signaling to anybody that's looking that you're serious about making them, pay for it themselves.
Well, this is saying more than that, isn't it? Isn't it also saying that we are either requiring or encouraging it because, on clean sources?
Yeah.
And the governor tried to do that too, this sentence of, I just love some of these words. Increasingly significant portion, I'd love to see that quantified, of the power from clean sources, which is not too far off of what we're saying here.
Right.
And then he gets more specific, or whoever wrote this for him, like solar, which no one's gonna use solar for data. You could use it for backup to the backup, that's all the reliability you get out of it. Advanced nuclear, I assume that's the SMRs, but I don't, that has no scientific meaning, advanced in front of the word nuclear. And battery. Well, batteries don't produce power, they store power. So whoever wrote this doesn't even understand the basics of engineering. But that's not unusual for politics. But I feel like we're getting a little bit close to the idiocy with this. I'd be okay to say something like the systems shall meet the environmental safety and utility interconnection standards, because it seems like we're at least paying attention to the issue. First of all, we're way out of our legal league by defining what power they use. That gets shot down in a second. So just like the governor's will, but that's just one opinion on that.
So you want to keep it set, delete the first one and keep the sentence, keep the second.
That's what I would do. So it looks like we're paying attention, but we're not being idiots, I guess, like the governor was, or whoever wrote this for the governor. I'm not blaming him. Maybe I should.
Tom, you're referring to
Yes.
taking out the first sentence.
Yes.
And you're leaving the last.
Yes,
Okay.
that is what I'm saying.
Which is this.
Yep. take out the first sentence and then leave the remainder.
Then it would be indicative of we're paying attention, we want you to be safe, meeting whatever, and by the way, there might be state rules in place that would be covered under our second sentence that aren't in place right now because of some of the pending legislation.
Yeah, this stuff is fluid.
Absolutely.
I do believe if they would have the backbone to do it, that the PUC has probably more power than they think they do to require any large user to toe the line.
Meet some requirements. Yeah, I agree with
The
that.
question is, do they have the guts to
Yeah.
actually do it?
Yeah.
That's the bigger question.
And then I think our second sentence covers that if they do. Say, oh, look, if there's other requirements, we expect you to meet them.
The next part there is the bottom of 12 and on page 13. There, it's the highlighted in yellow portion about solar. And I've seen that in there. It's part of the,
Where are you with it?
it's the bottom of page 12 on page
Oh,
13. About a solar energy plan and having an offset 25% of the annual consumption. I mean, we can keep that in there. I feel like it's written by people that don't, like planners that don't understand the scientific
Yeah.
component, by which to be fair, is that there's, you know, the number of people that do understand that is not high. So, you know, it's easy
You're right.
to write things that turn out to not work.
Right.
I'd be fine taking it out, because I don't think it's gonna work.
It doesn't.
Period.
Yeah.
And especially not work on the amount of land base that you have set aside for this.
You know, just so people appreciate it, you know, what 1 acre of a natural gas plant generates, you need 4,000 acres of solar panels. So just to put it in perspective, that spot doesn't have enough room to operate whatever data center you could put on there with any meaningful percentage of solar. You'd be wiping out a whole bunch of other farms with solar panels. Which doesn't meet our current requirements. So I would take it out. It's a virtue signal. I think that's it.
So we would then propose pretty much everything that's highlighted in D, all the way to number 2, to
Right.
take out.
Right.
Okay.
But we would let the first sentence in for D, or we removing D altogether.
I mean, let me go back.
I'll go and show.
That just says they have to make the roofs ready for solar if they want to do it.
Solar.
Oh, okay.
But it's not requiring them to do it.
Okay.
That's something we've actually started putting into a lot of just general industrial standards, period, is, because a lot of industrial buildings would get built without, at least the past would get built without paying it, they just build it for the snow load, and then not pay it, they can't retrofit.
Not be able to add it.
Add it later.
Yeah.
You know, these are likely to have stuff on the roof that preclude that in the first place. But we've some standards where they're sort of requiring that, hey, your roof has to be solar ready for in the future if you decide to add it. So,
Does that cost any more to do that?
Yeah.
I'm not being an engineer, structural engineer, I don't know,
It
I would
does.
assume so.
It does. I don't think it's crazy amount.
I was gonna say, it's
Depends
not
on the
much-
design of the roof. But, you know, these are mostly flat roofs,
Right.
for a significant solar array, you would have to change the structure.
Additional loading.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
Let's see, on the bottom of page 13, on page 14, again, one of the big issues with these is where the problem comes in is the backup generation.
Right.
Backup energy generation. They're often diesel. It's like generators, you know, and the noise from them, not 100%, but a huge chunk of it comes from those operating. If you've ever been near one diesel generator that's operating, you know it's not particularly quiet. Now, put a lot of them together and it's really not quiet.
And it's not just diesel. The big propane when it kicks on down school is pretty noisy too.
Yeah, but diesel's loud.
Well, no, it is, but I'm just saying.
Well, and, yeah, I was
The
thinking
size
diesel,
of
I was
it.
thinking
Any-
diesel, 'cause
any-
it's easy, but you're right, any of them are
Any
gonna
of
kick,
them are.
Yeah.
Natural gas, propane, but diesel's the loudest because of how they operate.
So,
Wouldn't have-
Yeah.
one of my staff, I don't know if that's where one of my staff members was down in Loudoun County, Virginia, over the beginning of July, back when they had a big heat wave down there. The state ordered all the data centers to operate off of their backup
Oh.
generators to
Ouch.
reduce the strain.
The load on the
grid.
Yep.
They were staying in a hotel, and if you've ever been to like Virginia, New Jersey, things like that, you often see hotels within business park settings. So it was that type of setting that happened to have a data center behind it. She took a video from the parking lot of the hotel, and this is in the middle of the day. It sounded like the loudest riding mower you've ever been on. And it was constant. It was like you were standing, like it was like mower's right there and I'm standing right here. That, but they were across the parking lot. So they're not quiet.
Yep.
This standard is trying to get some, some control of it. But again, the concern is some of it might get preempted.
I'd keep this in. I think this is good. If we had a way of putting out actual decibel ratings on it, I probably would. I think that's especially challenging. But I like this. I think that's a good protection for, what you described doesn't happen, at least voluntarily.
Right.
Yep.
Big generators don't have mufflers on the control that good. It's,
Oh, no.
they blow
And they all,
straight
of
out.
courth, have to be outside. Yeah,
So I think what you'd want to avoid is one of these things that that has somebody crunch the math and decide which is cheaper to run off the energy source from your backup generators or to run off the main
Yeah.
source that's coming into the building.
Yep.
And depending on what those costs and circumstances are, deciding that whether it's diesel or propane or whatever it is cheaper than what the other source is coming
Yeah.
in, so they run on that permanently.
And if I had that spot, I'd tie it, and the natural gas line is processed, I try to get my backups
Yeah.
off of that natural gas line. And you may find it's cheaper a lot of the time to do that. So
Absolutely.
that's another reason to keep this in.
So we leave that one alone.
The one bottom of page 14, water usage and cooling, we talked about that beginning here. On page 16 and on page 17, talks about environmental and community impact analysis. There's a lot of good things in there, but again, a lot of the things it's looking at are going to be either a purview of some outside agency, or B, like I mentioned the Middlesex Township meeting where they talked about the community benefits agreement. This is essentially what that's trying to get to, is identifying what those impacts are, and then they have to come up with a plan to mitigate it, over and above whatever the ordinance requires. For now, it seems like, at least the ones that we've read about within immediate distance of Adams County, the developers aren't challenging those. I don't know that remains if the noose tightens on the developers in terms of regulations and more moratoriums. I have a feeling that their willingness to pony up for things that aren't required by the ordinance are going to go away.
Yeah, I think so.
So, and I've mentioned to you before that that Huntington Township specifically is in a very unique circumstance with these sort of things. So when it gets built, you get all the problems and none of the revenues
Yeah.
to address it. So, you know, that's something to be cognizant of. So, I mean, if you want to keep it fine, if, you know, I think some of the environmental stuff is going to get preempted, but it, you know, if you want them to identify what those challenges are, you know, I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm just not sure there's a whole lot that you can require them to do without asking pretty please.
Yeah, for the reasons you said, I'd leave it in. I think that somewhere, you know, we may have the teeth on some of these things, and it may be a discouraging factor. And I agree, we don't have the teeth in a number of areas, but there's no harm to this that I can see. And it's solid stuff. I'd leave it in.
I would, if one would get proposed, and they asked about this, I know our recommendation for what it would be worth would be to focus on the community impacts
Yeah.
side more than the environmental.
Yeah.
Because of your circumstance, your particular sort of funding circumstance
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I think that's the more thing to focus on, and if you focus it with them on a very targeted thing, you're more likely to get a positive response, even if they're not required to.
Yeah. Good points.
Bottom of 17, on the 18, number 9, decommissioning. We talked about this a little bit last time. I'm going to pick on my fellow planning professionals a little bit. And anybody who's not familiar with how ordinances get written, there's not, to put it bluntly, there's not really copyrights on ordinances. They're public documents, they're public use. There's a lot of borrowing that goes on amongst ordinance writing, you know. Standard work somewhere else, you know, a good starting point. I'm willing to bet a good amount that a lot of the decommissioning stuff in these data center standards came from the solar, utility scale solar standards.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense there because, you know, those are very specific structure. They have they have a useful lifespan before they need to be replaced. So it makes sense. They're designed to be, in theory, removed at some point. Decommissioning makes sense. Data centers are warehouses. It's no different from the building itself, from an Amazon warehouse, a FedEx warehouse, you know, even an UTS warehouse. It's no different. It's just what's coming in and out that's different.
You clean all that computer stuff out there and you got empty.
Right.
Building.
You know, we wouldn't be asking UTS to decommission the new warehouse addition they built once they no longer need it. No, you know, you wouldn't ask that of any industrial building, because it can be repurposed if it's in an appropriate zoning district. Then it can be reused as something else within that district.
Yeah.
And not impacting the rest of the area around it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if they come in to change its use, they have to look at the change in use and the plan and traffic and all those sort of
That's right.
things will still have to be looked at.
Yep.
But decommissioning decommissioning the building. These things cost billions of dollars to build. What's a bond going to look like? Decommissioning bond going to look like on a building that cost $500,000 to build? And which municipality wants to be the one to go to their financial institution and says, hey, somebody just wants to post this bond, what do we do? You know, some unless you're dealing with one of the big international banks, a lot of them are gonna look at you like, well, that's, we don't know, we've never seen something like that.
Right.
Now, what I do think needs to be discussed here more appropriately are the specific exterior facilities that are specific to this type of use. The energy, electricity,
Battery
equipment,
storage,
battery
and those
storage,
things, correct.
backup generators, things that are specific to this use that aren't needed once that use is no longer there.
Yeah.
I think that it should be rewritten to focus on that, removing and bonding that rather than the building itself.
Right.
Because that is something that is very specific to the use.
Do you have some model language for us on that?
I don't, but I can come up, I will come up
Yeah,
with something.
would you, I think that's a good idea. I want to, though, just, and you and I talked about this, but let the rest of the planning commission know that the decommissioning of the building will be in some plans. I want you to understand it, and the reason why is some of these are going to be in agricultural areas by design, like they are in Cumberland, yeah, up in Cumberland County, thank you. And those roads can't be used for warehouses and other things. So they're doing this greenfield, brownfield approach, and it's not our approach. We're talking about commercial areas with commercial access. One of the points we have is about the road access. So we don't have their problem of what do you do with that building when it's over. I wouldn't use their approach. I don't like their approach. We're not using their approach. We've already discussed that. But that's why they've got the building decommissioning. And I'm going to tell you, some of these international banks are going to make a business out of a very good business out of decommissioning bonds. But it's not an issue for us because we're in an area where that can be used for something else if we approve for something else.
It's also worth pointing out that the state legislature just this year has now preempted every single ordinance around the state that had decommissioning standards in solar, utility scale solar. They I forget what bill it was. They passed a bill that basically centralized those standards across the state.
Okay. They standardized it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
And it wouldn't
Yeah.
wouldn't surprise me if
If
something
something like
similar
that happened here too. Yeah. Okay. So you'll get us some model language on decommissioning the parts that should be decommissioned.
Yeah, there's going to be a revision
Yeah.
to this to what we discussed.
Okay.
Let's see, we talked about the water, on page 18, number 3, E3, we talked about the water supply feasibility report. Number 4 is the noise and vibration and sound study. The one thing we talked about there, which last time, is what this does, it's basically gives, noise standards. Basically, earlier in the ordinance, it talks about establish what the baseline numbers are before development.
Yeah.
And then elsewhere, it allows them to how much they can increase that based on what that baseline is. The question that came up here, as we talked, was, well, given the setting here, well, what about 15? It's 15's there. It's a very open space. The traffic noise carries
And creates a baseline.
and creates a baseline that might be higher than you think it is.
Mhm.
It could probably, I could put a standard in there that would ask them well, I say require, but more than asking them to factor out the ambient noise from the vehicles to it somehow. I'm not sure how that would be written scientifically, but I think it's or maybe establishing baseline with and without that, or something like that there to account for it. That's the best I can think of. It's a very unique circumstance that you have. So
Yeah, you got an existing decibel level there, and what, if you put something in that increases that, what's gonna be allowable? I mean, where's it gonna be capped at?
well, that's why we're not choosing a specific decibel. We're establishing here's what the baseline is, and you can go only X% above that. At maximum and only in certain places. You know, like for example, if you put it at say 50, the baseline is 50 decibels, and just pick that, well, it might actually be 60 or 65, depending on what part of the property you're at and what time of day you're at, 115. Now, the time of day is handled because we require the study. This requires them to take those measurements at different times.
Yeah.
So they can't cherry pick
Yeah.
what time of day they want to compare it to.
And our noise study is subject to conditional use application. That's helpful, because if you get something that says, what's going on here, we have an opportunity to review it.
Right.
I think that's I think what you said is the best approach, with and without.
Issue with that?
No, it really isn't.
Yeah.
Outside the building.
Yeah.
And there's very little inside the building. What Ted's asking about is electromagnetic fields.
The EMFs.
The electromagnetic fields of the power lines are way greater
Greater
than
than
anything
what's
associated with a
emitted by
data
equipment.
center. Yeah. So I think unless some study produces something to the contrary, EMFs have not been a problem with data centers.
I know we talked with our IT staff, and the county has a server room
Yeah.
out it's in the HSB building up on Boyd School Road there. Yeah, we've seen it, we've been in it. And we've asked a couple other people that we know from the community that serve on boards that are in the industry. And almost universally, they'll tell us that if you're outside the room itself, you won't hear the servers themselves, the
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah.
What you hear is the stuff that's servicing them,
Yes.
but you won't hear them running.
Yeah.
Once you walk out the door of that room where they're being housed, you won't hear them. So, and that makes it, that room is not small. So
Yeah.
that's the main. That's
Yeah.
the main server hub in the county. It's not small, and when you're in the hallway, you can't hear it now.
Well, and that's, the way I encourage people to think about this sometime is, if you have a computer at your house, you have a data center. Your CPU, your hard drive, is a very small data center. And how do you don't want that room to be 150 degrees, or you'll ruin the data. And data centers historically, like the one you've described, they're cooled by, you keep the room cool. There's no special cooling, you keep the room. Engineers have done this. This is what my wife worked on for years. You have special cooling, you can clean rooms and other things, and other types of rooms, and that's what a data center is. A data center is just a whole bunch of those, and that's the difference.
No, I dislike heat, so I would. That room was nice and comfy when
Yeah.
I was in it.
Yeah,
But,
if there's
you
enough
know.
data being generated in there, it may be at 60 degrees, 55 degrees.
Okay, so I will play around. I say play around, but I will look around for something and come with something
All right.
Two more things, and then I'm done. Page 20, thermal mitigation impact. I put it, again, one of the things, I put it in there because I found it, a model that had it. I don't know exactly how beneficial it is. So I'm willing to take it out. I don't think it's appropriate. And I was talking about the waste heat that comes out of them. But, you know,
Well, any of the heat generated is really waste heat unless you're doing cogeneration. We're not capturing this heat. So just so everybody understands that, so we've got an air-to-air heat exchanger. Just think of it as that exchange, you know, when your condensing unit for your air conditioner. That's an air-to-air heat exchange, okay? So you're blowing air across the refrigerant. So the closed loop of the water is picking, or whatever, it's water plus some other stuff, but it's mostly water. So the water is picking up the heat in the data center. It's bringing, and it's in a closed loop, it's bringing that out to some sort of heat exchanger where it's blowing air across there. And there really isn't a substantial amount of thermal environmental effect. So I don't think this paragraph makes sense for the way we're talking about doing this. So when you look at what a power plant generates, okay, so take 3 Mile Island, those big towers are cooling towers. And you're condensing the steam that ran through the turbine that turned the generator that produced the electricity. So you've got to take that steam and condense it and run it back through again and heat it up in the nuclear plant and run it back through. So what happens is that you need a lot of heat. You need to get rid of a lot of heat. Let me say, that's why you can't do that with an air-to-air exchanger. There's just too much heat. You can't blow air across that. That's why you have to have the thermal effect of a cooling tower. You have to change the phase of the water that's where you get the greatest heat exchange. We don't have that. We're talking about a much smaller heat effect here. And if we're not producing power on site, or we're producing power in very small amounts, and we don't know that yet, then waste heat doesn't make sense because we really don't have enough.
Well, aren't they using condenser units to refrigerant units?
We're not condensing,
Where are you getting the cooling effect? Just from the
The water.
cooling tower?
no, we don't have a cooling tower. This is a closed loop.
How do you cool the water? Just
Blowing air, how do you cool water? How do you cool something now? You put it-
all I'm getting is cooling towers I'm used to, that evaporates. the
That's
water.
correct. This is a closed loop. That's when you need all that water, because you're evaporating a whole bunch of it.
So how is it, then it's not a totally closed loop if you're evaporating
I
it
know,
all?
we're not. This is a closed loop. We're not evaporating water here. We're blowing, the
So-
fan's blowing across that water and bringing it back in.
So again, if it's a closed loop, I'm not understanding how it's cooling down if it's a closed loop by just blowing air over it.
That's how it's cooling down.
Is it like
If
a
you look at the
radiator-
engineering of,
Like a radiator
On
field?
a 90-degree day,
on a 90-degree day with high humidity, I don't think they want a closed loop. That's the point I made in the last meeting.
okay?
Think about
Where-
a radiator in your house.
Yeah.
It's a closed loop.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
hot water going through the radiator. The air in the room blows across that radiator and it creates a heat
Heat the
exchange.
room.
It
Yeah.
cools the water in the radiator and it heats the room. It's the same thing.
Or the radiator in your car. You're not evaporating water to keep that water cool. It's blowing air across.
I have a little bit of knowledge on this stuff, but it still doesn't make sense to me. If you're not providing a cooling condenser,
Yep.
in a closed loop and you're just blowing air across a coil through,
A heat exchanger, a fin tube heat exchanger.
it's only gonna cool it down to what the outside air temperature's gonna be.
And that's
at-
enough.
At times, that's all it takes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
And it's even worse than high humidity.
So what's like the normal circulating loop temperature requirement for these for a closed loop? 80 degrees?
Well, you can get by with, you count on the fact that it cools down some at night. You hope you break 70, but if you don't, yeah, you're cooling with air. But that's part of our discouraging factor here. Because if we say you need closed loop, they don't have evaporation to work with.
Right.
We're not in a great place.
I understand
From
that.
all the way back at the very beginning, I said, if we're requiring closed loop, we're already discouraging
Okay.
people from using this
Okay.
area for
Gotcha.
our data centers.
Okay.
They can, but it's not as good
It's not
as
as
evaporated
efficient. It's
water.
not- Right.
It's not anywhere near as efficient.
Right.
The
It
big
can't be.
exchange you get from water is evaporating it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the massive amount of
Right.
heat transfer.
Okay.
Changing the phase.
Gotcha.
We're not changing the phase here. Just blowing air across it.
Question.
Hours lost.
Question. And again, this is one thing that it's not highly likely, so it's, maybe not be useful. If they wanted to do does this section become useful if somebody wants to do cogeneration on site?
Oh, cogeneration, if they're capturing the heat, no. That, it actually becomes less and less applicable. Because if they're doing cogeneration and capturing the heat and using it for something else, there's less of a thermal effect. That's highly unlikely in a closed loop as well. Highly unlikely.
So you're saying take that section out?
I don't think it has any meaning.
That's section 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Last thing on page 19, on page 21, and this actually doesn't even go in the data center overlay section. This is in the parking section. We're saying is 1 parking space per employee and 1 visitor space, because honestly, these things don't get a ton of visitors. And we're also saying 1 loading and unloading space per building. Because again, the only time they get something unloading and unloading is when they're swapping out equipment.
That's right.
So there's not a, you see this, it would have these massive traffic study requirements. Yeah. It's only relevant while they're being built. Once they're in operation, it's it's a computer farm. There's a couple employees there, and it's there's the only time they're taking stuff out is if they're swapping equipment. So it's not like it's a constant flow of big trucks into it. So, and that's a recommendation. We can sort of change it if you think something more or less, but I don't
Makes
see
sense.
need for massive
It makes-
parking
it makes
requirements on it.
sense.
I mentioned the construction part. The big impact is during construction. It's a massive construction site there. I found an article, a research paper. I want to say it was out of maybe in Cal Berkeley. It was somewhere out there. They did a massive study evaluation of, they were looking at utility scale solar projects specifically, about the property value impacts of the uses nationwide. That's something like 25,000 data points or something like this. And what they found, and I bring this up because it's, any use like that has very specific issue, site impacts. It would be relevant to data centers as well. What they actually found was there were 2 focus points in terms of property value changes. It was the big drop during construction and then a rebound. And it was also, very focused location-wise. So if you got outside of half a mile or a mile from that specific site, there was no statistical change in property, in the property values before or after. But what it said is, even though that shows that there's not a big change before and after, it's very localized to that site. It's also very impact is very time related during the construction cycle. And so the people that say, well, there's no impact on property values, they're right. And the people say, well, there are impact on property values, they're right too. Because if you're within that range and you need to sell right during that season, you're gonna get hit.
Yeah.
And you're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
But if you don't have to and you're outside that or you're outside of that, far enough away from it, you don't feel anything. You know, and it's, if you think about it, it makes it sounds like it passes the test.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see that somebody had studied that, and it's kind of relevant because you think about these things. They're a big construction site. It's building a big warehouse.
Yeah.
So, you know, and you think about back to the natural gas wells up in the northern part of the state. The big issue was construction.
Yep.
They were tearing up roads that were no bigger than what's out here, you know, and it was very disruptive.
Yep.
At that time. Once they're going and it's running, yeah, sure, there's some impacts with that, but
Yeah.
it's very much different
Yeah.
there. So
No, that's good.
I was well aware of that. It's up in Wellsboro there that they started doing that fracking up there. And the streets were muddy. Trucks hauling, just constant trucks hauling the fluid out.
Yeah.
And
one of the things I've seen, I think, is there might be something in here, is municipalities have started, for certain use, they've started to require the sites to access certain levels of roads, like arterials and collectors, because those are state roads. And that means that PennDOT deals with the site access, not the local roads.
Yeah.
And because the state has, you're not gonna tear up a state road without repairing it.
No, I got more teeth, yeah.
So I've seen that standard come in to try to force them onto the roads that can handle both the construction side and the post-construction side.
Yeah. That's good.
And I was showing Marlon, I have some, I'll copy this for the next meeting on how the closed loop systems work, just so everybody can look at it. And, you know, by way of example, if you can't remove as much heat as you do with evaporative, maybe you don't have as many of the CPUs in, or you don't put them as close together.
I understand now what
You
you're
spread
saying,
them
this
out.
limits what they can do.
This limits what
Yeah,
they can
and
do.
that's
And it may
good.
limit them so much,
That
they
they
say, oh, we'll do this
say
down
that.
in Virginia.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
gotcha,
yeah,
yep, I
yeah.
got it, yep. Thank you.
so,
That's all I have here. I have what I need to revise this to get you,
Yeah.
push the final
Please.
version.
Yeah.
so like for next month, we're gonna come back with a revised.
Well, that's gonna
Hopefully.
that's gonna be my next question. Do you want next month, you want to come back and we'll just cover this?
Yeah, we'll stay focused on this till we get this out of the way. At least I feel that way. I don't know about the rest of it.
So until once we get, I'll pick back up on the map and the rest of it once we've recycled this.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to I wanna make sure I know what I'm working on.
Well, that should be the right priority, right? I mean, this matters more than anything else that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Correct.
Get this out of the way, then we can focus back on the whole ordinance.
That's fair. I just wanna make sure I know what I gotta
Yeah.
get here next time, that's all.
And I actually think we can move reasonably quickly now, thanks to the work that Andy's done in getting this in place and getting it before the supervisors, and getting here.
And we don't wanna, we don't wanna just lunge into it without open, review and everything.
Yeah.
But then the other end, we don't wanna lag along and
And find out somebody's
So, yeah,
submitted
those are-
something, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I said, I think I can have the revisions here, we talked about here, and the additions for next month. I have the map ready, the only question that I have, and it's frankly, I think it's one that, you gotta decide, that your attorney's have to decide, is do you want it to be an overlay or a new district? You know, how do we write that? That's a question that's above my pay grade, but, I will write it either way, but in order to prepare the text and the full amendment of it, that's, you know, I'll do that once that's all done, but I'll have the revisions here for you next month.
Okay. All right.
Well, and that's a big question. Your very last question is an overlay or a district. You know, for solar, we took the position of a district. And that served us well so far. I don't know, something to think about. Off the top of my head, I think an overlay makes more sense.
That's probably the easiest, quickest approach to it.
I would agree with you,
Yeah.
but I also know that different solicitors and attorneys prefer different things.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I will say that I know, knowing the firm that your solicitor works for, I suspect that they're okay with that, because I know that
Not being an overlay.
Not him, but that firm represents another municipality in the county that uses an overlay for these things.
Well,
So, but I put that out there because I'll prepare it whichever way you want, but, you know, it's slightly different
Mhm.
in the final text.
Yeah, and I guess I'd ask the supervisors to think about that as well, because it's ultimately your call, not ours, but we would make a recommendation, obviously. And like I said, if I had to pick one right now, I'd pick overlay, but I'm not positive enough to say that I think that's the right thing. I'll take that through. And we've never done an overlay in this township, but most townships have it.
And just to be clear, in terms of once you have the text to a final point that you're comfortable with, you make that recommendation to send it forward. Obviously, it's a lot, and I expect your solicitor might want to look through it.
Yes, I agree
Through
with
the
that.
adoption
I agree with
process. If it's not too much for me to revise it based on what he wants in a certain fashion, that's not a big deal for me to
Right.
replace. So there's no need to incur the cost of until that is ready to go to
Okay,
the adoption
fair point.
Because it can be,
We can maneuver it then.
that's
Yeah.
just the final packaging.
Yeah.
Not changing
Yeah. Okay.
the text itself.
Okay,
All right.
as usual, thank you.
Thanks. I guess that's the end of old business. Public comments. Couple. Paul.
Question on the closed loop system, Tom. Is that a one-time use of water with minimal additions? Or is there a quantity that is in that?
Well, there is a quantity that is in, it depends on the size of the data center. But it is charged once, charge the system once, and then you can get leaks or changes or whatever, in like normal water
Right.
systems that you would add, but it's a, generally speaking, it's a one-time charge. Now, they have other reasons to have water in the system. You've got bathrooms, so it's not a waterless place.
Okay.
But you're talking about thousands of gallons of use instead of millions of gallons of use. I can give you numbers on that next time, but it's a,
That property at one time in the past was looking at a hog operation. So this use would be much less water consumption than that, I assume.
I don't know what a hog operation uses. I'm good with thermodynamics, but not farming. So.
Paul knows how much cattle
Yeah.
and dairy does.
Okay.
A lot.
So it sounds like a lot.
Yeah,
Yes.
that
Yes.
is a better deal.
Yeah. Yes.
By the way, have you ever had like a geothermal system for a heating system?
Oh, okay.
They have
closed loop.
They have closed loop ones and open loop ones there. It's a very similar thing on a much different.
Different scale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the visitor center down in Gettysburg has a
No, not
geothermal
necessarily.
system. And like where the bus parking lot is, all the wells are underneath that. There. So, but that's a much smaller scale,
Yeah, it's the same idea.
yeah.
Think of it as a cooling system in your car. You know, it's water and air blowing across your radiator. And say, well, how's that work on hot days? Well, it still works, but
Yeah.
not as efficiently.
But you're in,
Yeah. And your engine's hotter than outside, but data systems are hotter than outside. So you're still cooling at 90 degrees, just not as much.
Maria, I believe you had a
Yeah,
question.
simple question. The proposed ordinance for data centers, I just wanted to know who prepared that? You did, okay. Because I understand from research that there are different municipalities here in Adams County that do have data centers. So is that where you got the information from, or exactly?
Data center, they don't have data
Data-
centers, they
data-
have data center ordinances.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
There's some that have done it on their own, there's others that we have helped prepare. So it's a combination of what the research that we've done, models that we've found in other places, and other ordinances that we've worked on.
so this isn't a basic document that the planning, for Adams County planning has, that they just hand out or explain that to, or bring it to municipalities?
No, well, it depends on what the municipality wants. This was something that I researched and wrote custom to this municipality,
Okay,
just like I've done for a number of other municipalities.
okay,
Depends on what their circumstances are and what they want in it, what goes into it.
okay.
So,
Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
Just one thing, the landscape, I didn't hear much about that, like buffers around the building, planting trees to hide the building, changing the grade of the land just in case.
It's all in here.
But
Yeah.
it seemed very light.
Oh, it's not light.
No, it's not, we just didn't talk about it.
Oh, it's not light, we just didn't talk about it tonight.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I heard at the other meeting, it just didn't seem like there was much to it. I mean, if you put a big berm up with some mature trees around, that would hide this building a lot more. You know, noise, you guys are saying noise is a factor.
Yeah.
That helps with noise.
Yeah.
The other thing, the natural grade of the land, if for some reason they would decide that putting this building, you know, putting this stuff underground to keep it cool, and then maybe still having a building above it. So if they bring the grade of the land up and start using the ground, could that be something in the future? You know, so now you're talking 35 foot is height, but if they put the building pad 30 foot up already, then put a building on top of it, now you have a building that's 60 feet in the air. It's still sitting on grade. So, just food for thought. I know things underground are a lot cooler.
Yeah, the expense of putting this underground doesn't warrant doing that at this point. Now, that could happen at some time, but they're not building these underground at this point.
Right.
You know, these cooling approaches are very standard cooling approaches. This isn't anything new and considerably different than cooling of a whole lot of things that generate heat. So unless, I'd call it more of a public opinion issue that may require this to be all kinds of different things than we're kind of witnessing right now. But it costs, from a cost standpoint, it doesn't make sense to put these underground now. Anything could happen in the future.
Right.
So if I could answer,
Yes,
the
please.
standard in here, it's the required berm. There's landscaping, there's the fence, there's a berm.
How high?
Well, the berm, it's include the elevation above sea level measured at a point equivalent to 1/2 the building height. So it's,
15 foot.
yeah, so if they have 35 foot, it's gonna be up there, then they're required to put landscaping on top. The idea is that it's, with the combined with the setbacks,
Right, you won't
Yeah.
see.
the idea is that it's back there, it's hidden, and ideally it's designed so that it doesn't look like you're trying to hide something. Here, they're having a landscape architect that's to design it to look as natural as it can be. But
Right.
at least until things get more mature than the, whatever, 2 or 3 inch caliper stuff they put in to start.
And you're welcome to look at.
No,
Is there any other? I was gonna say something, I'm gonna put it under public comments, but I think we ought to be supportive of the Wolf family and working with PennDOT trying to fix Harrisburg, on Harrisburg Road and Route 94 intersection. Yeah, it's been a problem for years, and
You want to share your personal experience?
well, that's, I was 5 years old and just about lost my mother and father in the wreck in there. And that was when Old 15, what we call Old Harrisburg Road, was through, because Route 54 lane wasn't there yet. And 94 stopped, and we came down that hill, and we got T-boned and high speed coming up 94, and it was a 55 Chevy, a heavy car. It flipped it up in the air and landed on the roof. And yeah, it was close to wiping us out at that time. But there's been a lot. I think there's some pictures, some of these old pictures of wrecks at that
Yeah, there's one
intersection.
there. That's from the 30s maybe.
I don't know what the answer to it is, but I think, and PennDOT, well, PennDOT's PennDOT, they'll do studies and they'll say that signals aren't warned because of the volume of turns and stuff like that are not there. But the sight distance are terrible.
Yeah, in every direction.
Yeah.
It's just horrible.
Yeah. So I just want to go on record myself, I don't know about the rest of you, but I want to go on record that I'm supportive of that, where the supervisors would cooperate with the borough and the Wolf family in trying to deal with PennDOT on that.
And once you've had a chance to look at whatever you ask us to do, we would enthusiastically support looking at that and doing something to
Yeah, it's just a,
reduce the hazard there. Let's say it that way.
I remember my father-in-law calling that Coffin Corner.
Yeah.
That's what they called it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is what it,
Coffin Corner.
that's on that.
There's been about somewhere around low, like 11 to 14 people killed in that intersection before the bypass was put in.
it used to be a lot of trucks.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
And
the
then-
main north and south.
Yeah,
Yeah, without the interstate.
it was very bad before the bypass.
right.
Yeah, it still is.
Yeah.
It was just about weekly then.
Yeah, it was, oh yeah, you lived up on top of the hill. Yeah. So,
Good point, Ted.
having said that, is there any other comments from the board, or if
No.
not on it? Next supervisors meeting is September 10th. Planning Commission September 28th. And I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
The motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Back when that building and all that stuff was put there, they were still riding horses and buggies through that town.
I mean,